tourism final examination preparation. So I'm going to begin with you with the layout of the NCS question paper. It consists of section A with all short questions covering all topics. Then we have map work and tour planning, which it covers 50 marks. So for this one, map work and tour planning, I'm going to shed more light on it since it is a demanding topic. Then we also have foreign exchange, which is also part of map work and tour planning. It will be handled in this discussion. Tourist attractions also, and culture and heritage and tourism contribute 50 marks, which is a significant portion of the total examination mark. So then we also have marketing, tourism sectors, they contribute 30 marks each. We also have sustainable and responsible tourism under the same section. Then in section E, there is domestic, regional, and international tourism, which constitutes 30 marks when combined with communication and customer care. So that for the total of the examination will be 200 marks. Moving on to the first part, which we are going to deal with in this session, we have section B, question 2, which dwells on map work and tour planning. So I would start by a definition of terms and an explanation of the common terminology which is used in this particular part of the paper. So the first term is the term time zone. So a time zone refers to the region of the earth where all countries have adopted the same standard time. For example, in South Africa, we are in the +2 time zone. We are in the +2 time zone. So all cities or all places in South Africa, they belong to a particular time zone. Then the steps to follow when doing time zone calculations. We need to master the steps which you need to follow when you are performing or when you are doing time zone calculations. So the first thing which I would want to emphasize is the location of the places on a time zone map. You must locate the places which you are being examined on, which cities are involved in the time zone calculation. So step number 1, locate the places on a time zone map and also determine their time zones. It is important for you to determine their time zones. Which time zone does that city lie in? So this means that the white or gray areas on top of the map must correspond with the color of the country. So I'll also take you through the time zone map so that you can know about the white or gray areas on top of the map. Then the third or the second step is you need to determine the number of hours difference between the two places. You need to determine the number of hours difference between the two cities or the two places. Then the third step, decide if you must add going east or subtract when going west the number of hours. You need also to decide if you are going east, you add when you're going to east to the eastern direction. Then you also subtract when you're going to the western direction. Then the fourth step, you must add or subtract the number of hours and give the answer using the 24-hour clock. It is very, very important for you to express your answers using the 24-hour notation. Remember to also include the day or the date of the final calculation. So if the calculation requires DST, first add 1 hour to the time zone of the place that practices DST. For example, if New York is it actually lies in the -5 time zone, is used in the calculation, the time zone should be adjusted by adding 1 hour, taking New York to -4. Then do the calculation as usual. Then also, when you're doing calculations with flying time, if you want to determine arrival time, add the flying time. So if you want to determine the time which the tourist arrived, you need to add the flying time. If you want to determine the departure time, subtract the flying time. You need to subtract the flying time. Then moving on to the next concept. The next concept, it's a concept which is common when you travel across time zone. So this concept is called jet lag. Jet lag is actually a physical condition related to flying long distances over several time zones. For example, when you fly from east to west or from west to east, it is related to the number of time zones a traveler crosses, not the length of the flight. So we need to emphasize this. Jet lag is a physical condition which you get when you fly from east to west, or when you fly from west to east. It is related to the number of time zones. So it is influenced by the number of time zones a traveler crosses. If a traveler crosses several time zones, they are most likely going to experience jet lag. So here are the symptoms of jet lag. The first one, we do have insomnia, which is the inability to sleep. Then you also experience tiredness, which we call fatigue. Then you also feel a sense of irritability. Then you have also interrupted sleep patterns whereby you cannot sleep properly. Your sleep is usually interrupted because your body clock does not know whether it's day or it's actually night. Then you also feel discomfort in legs and feet. Then you struggle to concentrate. You might also experience constipation or diarrhea. There is also an element of confusion and disorientation. Dehydration is a common symptom of jet lag as well. Then you may experience headaches associated with nausea and also loss of appetite and dizziness. Then moving on to a slightly related concept, which is jet fatigue. Jet fatigue is related to the length of the flight. So we need to highlight this part. It is related to the length of flight, as many travelers may feel extreme tiredness after a long flight. So jet fatigue is mainly associated with people who fly what we call long-haul flights, flights which you have a longer duration. So jet fatigue is associated with long-haul flights. This one is only associated with long-haul flights. It's associated with long-haul flights. So it has nothing to do with the direction of travel, but it's only associated with several hours of flying. Then in addition to that, we also need to take you through the time zone map so that you can be familiar with the time zone map when you're doing your calculation. So each and every question paper, it has a time zone map. So if you look at this time zone map, it is actually divided into 24 time zones. So we start from -11 up to +2. So what we have on the topmost, we do have the ribbon, which starts from -11 up until +11. So all of these are different time zones. Then in addition to that, we need also to observe the different degrees which are used there. So time zones are determined by where the position in which a city or a country lies on the globe. So we start from 180 degrees up until 180 degrees west up until 180 degrees east. Then we should also determine which one is east. So you can draw, whenever you get a time zone map, you can also draw a small compass which determines which is east and which is north. So we start this side, the top side is your north, then your right hand side is your east, then the left hand side is the west, then the downside is the southern side. So you need to be familiar with the time zone map. So when you're determining the time difference between two different cities, you can also use this ribbon which is on top of the time zone map. So I also want to draw a distinction between the shaded areas. There are shaded areas and also there are plain areas. There are gray areas and white areas. So for example, if you go to this part of the time zone map, we have -8. -8 is the time zone for Los Angeles, which is different from -7, which is the time zone for cities in Canada. So you must make a distinction between the white areas and also the shaded areas. So when you locate your city, try to link it to the gray area or to the white area, depending on where it is exactly located. Then moving on to the same time zone map, we also have the wheel, which lies at the bottom of them. The wheel is also important when you are trying to make your calculations. For example, a person departed at 2300 hours or at 11 o'clock at night at 2300 hours. Then the duration of their flight was perhaps 6 hours. So you can use this wheel to calculate 23 plus 6. so that you can get a correct calculation. So you can do it like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which means that they arrived at 0. It's at 5 o'clock in the morning the following day. So it is important to know these tools so that it can be easier for you to do your calculations correctly. So moving on back to our question our set of questions which we are going to use for examination practice. So we have the first question which appears then. So it is compulsory to use the time zone map on page 3 when you're doing your calculations. Whenever you're doing your calculations, you need to make use of the time zone map. You need to make use of the time zone map. It is a must that you must use the time zone map. So we have the first activity, activity 2.1. We have Kalyan, who traveled from Johannesburg to Rome. Your flight from OR Tambo International Airport departed at 2 o'clock on 6 February 2018. We need to highlight these things. So we have two cities which are involved here. The first city is Johannesburg. Then the next city is Rome. So we have our two cities here. Then air flight departed at 1400 hours on 6 February 2018. All right. Then the flying time from Johannesburg to Leonardo da Vinci International Airport was 14 hours. Now, moving on to the first question. Give the time zone between Johannesburg and Rome. So I'm going to demonstrate it here. So we are going to start with Johannesburg. Johannesburg lies within the +2 time zone. Then when it comes to Rome, we refer back to our map. So we need to identify where exactly Rome is on the time zone map. So if you look at this time zone map, Rome lies within the +1 time zone. So I'm going to circle where Rome is. This is our Rome. Then Johannesburg, it lies in the +2 range. So I'm also going to circle where Johannesburg is. So going back to our question paper, you notice that these two cities lie in different zones. So Rome is actually in the +1 zone. Then Johannesburg is +2. So to find the answer or the time difference between these two, we subtract. So we subtract 2 minus 1. That is equal to 1 hour. So the time difference between Johannesburg and Rome is 1 hour. We got the answer by subtracting 1 from 2. Then the time difference which is there is 1 hour. So after doing that and showing all the working, you get your 2 marks. Then the next question reads, calculate the time and the date you arrive in Rome. So the first thing which we need to do, we need to adjust our clock. Air flight departed OR Tambo at 1400 hours on 6 February 2015. So when we change this to Roman time or to Italian time, we know very well that Rome is actually behind by 1 hour. So we say 1400 hours minus 1. We are trying to adjust so that we can have the Italian time. So 1300 hours is the time of the departure. Then this time of the departure is added onto 14 hours of the flight or the duration of the flight. So we add the 14 hours to 1300 hours. So we use the wheel which is on the time zone map. So we are saying the departure time was 1300 hours. So we go to our 13. We go to our 13 on the time zone map. So our 13 lies around this area. Then from 13, we count 14 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So if you look at this, you will find that the flight actually arrived the following day. You go back to the time zone map. From them, you can actually determine that it arrived at 5 o'clock the following day. That is if you factor in the Italian time. So the time of arrival is going to be 0, 5. Then you put your semicolon to show the difference between the hours and the minutes. So the date of arrival, we crossed midnight. So obviously the date of arrival will be now 7 February. So the date and the time of arrival is 7 February. So this is according to Roman time. But still, the answer can also be correct if you also say 4 o'clock on 7 February. That is according to South African time. But it is advisable for you before departure, always adjust the clock to suit the time of the destination where you are going to. Then let's moving on to 2.1.3. It is 8 o'clock in Rome. Then Kalian wants to call a friend in New York. Calculate the time a friend will receive the phone call in New York. So the first thing which we need to do is to determine the time zone of from, which we have already determined from the previous question. So in Rome, it is actually 8 o'clock. That is in the morning, 8 o'clock. Then the question requires us to come up with the time for New York. So we go back to the time zone map. Then we try to locate New York on the time zone map. So going back to the time zone map, you'll find that New York, it actually lies within between the minus 5 time zone. Here is New York. It lies within the minus 4 time zone. So we go back to the question paper. Then we have identified where New York is. So we need now to demonstrate our calculation since we have identified the two cities. So going back to the question paper, or we can even demonstrate it here. New York is minus 4. Then Rome is on the plus. It is on the +1 time zone. So we need to locate on the ribbon or on the number line where +1 and New York. So +1 lies here. That's where Rome lies. Then New York, it is actually on the minus 5 time zone. So we need to start to count the time difference between the cities. So start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as you can see, you can actually see that there is a 6-hour difference between the two cities. And if you look at New York, New York is actually behind Rome. So what we need to do is when we have been given Roman time, so Roman time is 8 o'clock minus 6 hours, which gives us 2 a.m. So it was actually 2 a.m. when the call was made. It was actually 2 a.m. or 2 o'clock in the morning when this call or this particular call was made. Then moving on to the next question. So when you want to determine the difference between the two cities, you first identify them on the time zone map. So we say that Rome is on the +1 side. Rome is in the +1 side. +1. Then when we go to New York, you can see that it is in the -4. So we have our New York is on this side, then Rome is on the +4. So let's circle where New York is. This is New York -4. Then we have our Rome, which is in the +1. So we start counting from the minus, actually New York actually lies in the -5. So we start counting from the -5 up to +1. So when we count from here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there is a 6-hour difference. So we subtract 8 o'clock, which we have been given. We subtract 8 o'clock. To 2.1.3. The question reads, it's 8 o'clock in Rome. Kaylin wants to call her friend in New York. Calculate the time your friend will receive the phone call in New York. Show all calculations. So the first thing which you need to do is you need to identify the two cities on the time zone map. Rome lies within the +1 region. Then when you go to New York, it lies within the -6 region. So the difference between the two cities is actually 6 hours. So what you do is you subtract 800 from you subtract 6 hours from 800, then it would give you 202. Then you put the semicolon to show that it is in 24-hour notation. So the correct time or the phone call will be received in New York at 2 a.m., which is written as 0200. That is 2 o'clock in the morning. Then the next question reads, study the information below and use the time zone map to answer the questions that follow. So the title reads, Angela flies to the United States of America. Below is Angela's flight information for your trip from Cape Town to San Francisco. So we are given a scenario which reads, Angela flew from Cape Town. So we need to highlight the first city. So the first city of departure is Cape Town, which we know that it is actually in the +2 time zone. Then the next city will be San Francisco. So we also need to determine the location of San Francisco. San Francisco is in the United States of America. So if we come back on the time zone map, you'll see that San Francisco lies within the -8 time zone region. So this is -8. Then your flight departed from Cape Town at 5 o'clock on 21 November. Then it stopped in Cape Verde Islands en route to San Francisco. The total flying time, including the stopover time in the Cape Verde, was 23 hours. Give one reason why the flight stopped at Cape Verde Islands. So the first reason, you can actually cite two reasons, but the question requires one. The first reason is stopping over. It can be done so that the passenger can catch or can connect to a connecting flight. So to connect to a connecting flight, it can be one reason. That is the first reason. Then another reason, you can also say that for refueling the plane, since the flight from San Francisco to Cape Town is a really long haul flight, so they might have stopped for refueling so that they can get more fuel for them for the aircraft. So this might be another reason to catch a connecting flight or for refueling. That is those are the two reasons which you can cite for that particular question. So the second part reads, calculate Angela's time and date of arrival in San Francisco. So what is required here is arrival time. So when you're calculating arrival time, we use this formula. Arrival is equals to departure plus duration of flight. Departure time plus flight duration. So in this scenario, we have been given departure time already. The flight departed at 1400 hours. That is in South African time. It's 17:00 plus a total duration of 23-hour duration. So for such a type of a calculation, to avoid confusion, you can use the wheel, which is on our time zone map. So we go to 17, then we count 23 hours from 17. We count 23 hours from 17. So the first thing which we need to do is we go to 17. We identify 17 on our clock. So here lies 17. So from 17, we count 23 hours. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So after counting 23 hours, it leads us to 1600 hours. So we write our 1600 hours. Then the time of arrival was 1600 hours. Then the date has changed simply because we have crossed midnight. So the date has changed to 22 October. The date has changed to 22 October. So the date and the time of arrival was 4 o'clock on 22 October. So, but this is according to South African Standard Time. This is according to South African Standard Time. So we can still change it to San Francisco time. So we have identified that San Francisco is in the -8 region. So we need to determine the time difference between San Francisco and South Africa. So we go back to the number line. We go back to our ribbon on the time zone map. San Francisco is within the -8 and South Africa is within +2. So we need to count from -8 to +2. So you come here on the ribbon again, then you count from -8 to +2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can notice that there is a 9-hour difference between San Francisco and South Africa. So what we need to do, we know very well that San Francisco is behind South Africa. So you subtract 16 minus 9 hours. So according to San Francisco time, we would know that this passenger or this person arrived at 0500, that is 0500 on the 22nd of October. That is according to San Francisco time. That is according to San Francisco time. So the question did not specify. So as a result, both answers can be correct. You can still be credited for just saying 1600 hours. That is according to South African Standard Time, or it can be 5 a.m. according to San Francisco time. Then the next part of the question reads, after spending some time with family in San Francisco, Angela continued on a trip to Dallas. She arrived in Dallas at 8 o'clock on 8 January. Calculate at what time the flight departed from San Francisco if the flight was 3 hours long. So we have been given arrival time. So the question needs us to determine the departure time. So when you're given arrival time and the duration of the flight, you simply have to subtract departure time, the duration of flight from the arrival time. So the arrival time is 8 o'clock. We've been given as 8 o'clock. Then we subtract the 3 hours of the flight duration. Then it gives us 5 a.m. So you may adjust to suit Dallas time, or you may just also present it as 5 o'clock according to the time in the town of origin. So it leads us to question 2.3. Read the information below and answer the questions that follow. So we have a global event in the name of the 2019 FIFA World Cup. South African fans will fly to Paris, France to watch some of the World Cup matches. They will depart from OR Tambo Airport at 8 o'clock, that is at night, that is 2000 hours on Wednesday. We also need to highlight the date, the day when they would depart. Their total flying time will be 11 hours. Also this needs to highlight this. They will remain in France for the duration of the World Cup. Thereafter, we'll spend a few days in 3 northeastern European countries that share borders with France. Then we also have an infographic which appears there, which tells us the tournament details. The host country is France. The dates are 7 to 7 July. Then we also have the teams 24 from 6 confederations. Then we also have 9 venues, 9 host cities. Then the opening ceremony is 7 June 2019. This is of interest to us. So we need also to highlight this, 7 June 2019. Going to the question, it reads, calculate the time at which viewers in Perth, Australia will be able to watch the opening ceremony on live television. The infographic is given us information that the official ceremony will start at 1800 hours. It will start at 1800 hours. That is according to French time, or according to France's time zone. We know very well that France is in the +1 time zone. So we need to determine the time zone for people who are watching from Perth, that is in Australia. Perth, Australia. So we go back to our time zone map and try to determine the time zone for Perth. So Perth, I'm going to circle its position on the time zone map. Perth appears, or it actually lies within the +8 time zone. It appears within the +8 time zone. So the time difference between these two cities, the time difference is equals to 8 minus 1, which gives us 7 hours. So in other words, we are saying that Perth is actually 7 hours ahead of France. So when an event starts at 1800 hours, 1800, in Perth, we need to adjust the clock by 7 hours ahead. So in Perth, they actually are ahead in terms of what? In terms of time. So 1800 hours plus 700 hours. So we go back to our ribbon, which tells us the event that the event starts. The event starts at 1700 hours. So we identify our 17. 17 is there. Then we are adding 7 hours to that. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So going back, the time difference is 1700 hours. Actually, we are starting from 1800 hours. Let's adjust that to 1800 hours. We are starting from 1800 hours. So we start counting from 18 rather instead of 17. So let's redo it again. So from 18, we count 7 hours. So the first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we have also, please note that we have crossed midnight. So it shows us the event starts. It can be viewed by people in Australia at 1 a.m. So the time difference is 7 hours. So these ones are going to view this one at 0, 1, 0, 0. Then in terms of the date, their date here is now, they have crossed midnight. They are now on 6 June 2019. They have crossed the date, so they are now on the following date. Then calculate the time at which the South African fans will arrive in Paris. So first we need to determine the departure of the South African fans. So we'll write our departure time. Let's first determine departure. Their departure, they departed OR Tambo at 8 o'clock. So time of departure is 20:00 plus a duration. Let's go back and check the duration of the flight. The duration was 11 hours. Plus 11 hours. That's plus a duration of 11 hours. So we go back to our wheel to use it for the calculation. So when we go back to our wheel, we need first to identify their time of departure, which was 100 hours. Time of departure was 20. Here is our 20. Then the duration of the flight was 11 hours. So we count from 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So as you can see, they actually arrived the following day on the 7th of June. So this gives us, they arrived the following day. They crossed midnight. So their time of arrival is 7:00. Then the time also changed because they crossed midnight. They arrived on the 6th of June. 6 June. That is the time of the arrival. On the 6th of June, that is the time when they arrived. So you may also adjust to suit Paris time, and you know that there is a 1 hour difference between the two countries. So it can also be, you can actually say that they arrived in Paris at 6 o'clock, but it may not be necessary to include that as well. So now moving on to the next question, we have explained the difference between jet lag and jet fatigue. All right, so when you talk about jet lag and jet fatigue, I'll start by explaining the first one. Jet lag refers to the disorientation jet lag refers to the disorientation you feel after from east to west or west to east. So you experience jet lag after crossing several time zones. After crossing several time zones. So jet lag is experienced after crossing several time zones. Then on the other hand, jet fatigue is the tiredness. This refers to the tiredness experienced, felt after a long haul flight. A long haul flight. Please bear in mind that jet fatigue has nothing to do with crossing time zones. So this is the general tiredness which you just feel after a long haul flight. After a very, very long flight, you end up experiencing jet fatigue, which is the tiredness felt after a long haul flight. So that is the main difference between jet lag and jet fatigue. So with the jet fatigue, maybe it's associated with north to south or vice versa. When you fly from north to south, you experience jet fatigue. Then moving on to the next part of the question, refer to the picture and give 2 symptoms of jet lag. So someone who is jet lagged will feel disorientation. They feel disorientation. Then in addition to disorientation, they also feel nauseous. Then they feel restless. Then they also experience interrupted sleep symptoms. Their sleeping patterns are interrupted sleep. Then some people have also reported headaches. So all these are symptoms of jet fatigue, which can be experienced if you cross several time zones. Now, moving on to the next question. Study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. So we have the cartoon which appears below. We have Mandisa, who is traveling from one part of the world to the other part of the world. So in terms of Mandisa says, I'm departing from Bangkok to Beijing at 5 o'clock on 7 October. My flight is 5 hours long. Then the next one, I'm going to London. During summer, I will depart OR Tambo Airport on 21 October. My flight is 11 hours. So calculate the time and the date Wongwa would arrive in Beijing. So the first thing we need to identify who Wongwa is. So in frame 1, that's where you find Wongwa. So this one is departing from Bangkok at 5 o'clock on 7 October. The flight is 5 hours long. So we need to do our calculation. We say 0500 plus 5 hours. That's our 5 hours. That would give us an arrival time of 10 o'clock. So that is 10 o'clock according to Bangkok time. But we also need to determine what is the time zone of Bangkok and what is the time zone of Beijing. So Bangkok is in the +7, then Beijing is in the +8. There's a 1 hour difference between the two times. Beijing is actually ahead in terms of time, so we add 1 hour to that arrival time. So you can actually say, or you write your final answer as 11, the time of arrival, 100 hours according to Beijing. It is 11 o'clock according to Beijing time. But if we are using Bangkok time, it would be 10 o'clock. So that is the time and the time of arrival for Bongwa. This sum is for Bongwa. Then moving on to the next one, calculate the time and arrival of Mandisa in London. So if we look at Mandisa, she departs at 20:00 on 21 October. Then the flight is 11 hours, so we add the 11 hours flight plus 11 hours. Then we go back to our wheel, 20 plus 11. We go back to our wheel and use our wheel for our calculation, which is easier. So on our wheel, we identify 20, then we count from 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So if you count from 20 up until 11 hours, it leads us to 7 o'clock. So the time of arrival is actually 7 a.m. 07 00. All right, that is according to South African time. So we also need to determine the time difference between South Africa and London, because the question also reads, London is practicing DST during your visit. What is the time difference between South Africa during this time? So the first thing, the time difference between South Africa, normally, South Africa is in +2, then the UK or London is in the 0. So 2 minus 0, the normal time difference without DST is 2 hours. But in this case, there is an hour of DST, so the normal time difference is 1 hour time difference. So 1 hour, it simply means during this time, when it was 7 o'clock in South Africa, the UK or London was behind by 1 hour. So we subtract this 1 hour, which gives us 0.600. That is 6 o'clock in the morning. So calculate the time and the date Mandisa will arrive in London. Give the answer to Bonga's frame in frame 2. So the answer to Bonga's question is actually, what is the time difference? The time difference is 1 hour. 1 hour time difference. The normal difference is 1 hour time difference. Why? Because if you go back to this, South Africa is +2, or it uses +2. South Africa is in the +2 time zone. Then London is in the 0 region. So we say 2 minus 0 is equals to 2. Then we also say minus DST, minus DST 1 hour adjustment. So it means that the time difference which we have between South Africa when London is practicing DST is only 1 hour difference. So we are left with 1 hour difference. This is the difference between South Africa and London. 1 hour difference. So having done this, it gives us a total of 17 marks. So this is basically how you do the time zone calculations. You have to determine the two cities. Then if you are required to apply DST, you can also apply DST wherever you are required to apply it. Moving on to another type of a calculation, a different type of calculation, but this time it will be foreign exchange, which is question 3. It appears in section B, also under map work and top planning, but the only difference is now we are dealing with money. So there are key terms which you need to master here. The first key term is GDP. So GDP refers to the value of all goods and services produced within a country in a year. The GDP is used to measure the economic progress. How a country is progressing is also measured by looking at GDP. So that's the definition of GDP. You need to master it as well. It is usually examined in section A in multiple choice question or in other short questions. Then the multiplier effect is also an important term which needs to be mastered. The multiplier effect is when money spent by tourists filters down to the economy benefiting other organizations. So in simple terms, we can also say that it is a situation whereby a tourist spends money, then that money flows to other sectors of the economy. That is what we know, what is known as the multiplier effect. So when money spent by tourists filters down through the economy, benefiting other organizations. Then let's look at the next one, the buying power of the rand. So when we say that the rand is buying power, we are referring to the amount of foreign currency which you can buy with the South African rand. That is the amount of foreign currency which the South African rand can buy you at a particular given time. That is referred to as the buying power of a currency. Then moving on to the next thing. If the rand can buy a lot of another currency, we actually refer that to we can actually say that the rand is strong in relation to that currency. So these things fluctuate, or the value of a currency, it actually fluctuates over time. It changes over time. It does not remain stable. It is influenced by various factors, which can include economics, or which can include what is prevailing in the political situation of a country. So if the rand can only buy a little of a particular currency, we say that the rand is weak in relation to that particular currency. When, for example, the rand can only buy a few US dollars, or if it cannot even buy $1 US, it simply means that the country will be weak, or the country's currency will be weak. Moving on to the next part of the concept. If the rand is strong, we are now looking at the effects of a strong or a weak rand. The foreign tourists will receive less rands for their currency. So if the rand is strong, it is actually bad for inbound tourism. It is actually bad for those tourists who are coming into South Africa, simply because they will receive less money for their currency. Then, as a result, foreign tourists will have less money to spend. Inbound tourists will visit South Africa for a short period and will not visit at all. Some will decide to visit other countries, they will not visit at all. So the snowball effect of this is that tourism will contribute less to South Africa's GDP, and the economy will eventually decline, which can lead to job losses and other negative things. Then also, when the rand is weak, more inbound tourists will visit South Africa. So a weak rand is actually good for South African tourists. It actually attracts more inbound tourists. They will end up visiting South Africa. Why do we say so? Foreign tourists will get more for their rands. The foreign tourists will get more rands for their own currency. When they change from the US dollar, or they will change from the euro, they are likely going to get more rands for their currency. Then foreign tourists will have more money to spend. So South Africa will also be considered to be a value for money destination. Then foreign tourists will visit South Africa for longer periods, which is actually a good thing, which will then lead to an increase in the gross domestic product of South Africa, which will have a positive impact on the economy, which can eventually lead to job creation. So that is the effect of a weak rand on tourism and on the economy broadly. Moving on to the next part, which has something to do with the bank selling rate. So the bank selling rate, this is a rate which is used by foreign exchange dealers. For example, commercial banks. When you are having foreign currency, when you visit a foreign country, you change it at a foreign exchange dealer, at a commercial bank, or at a bureau de change. So the bank selling rate is the rate at which the foreign currency dealers will sell their foreign currency. The rate at which they will sell their foreign currency to tourists. That is known as the bank selling rate. Then moving on to the next one, the bank buying rate. This is the rate at which the foreign exchange dealers, that is commercial banks, will buy foreign currency. What rate would they use to buy your foreign currency is referred to as the bank selling rate. So we need to make a distinction between these two different rates, which are used by foreign currency exchange dealers. Then moving on to the next part, which requires me to explain. When doing a foreign exchange calculation, you need to always look at it from the bank's position. So you must look at it from the perspective of the bank or of the banker. You must put yourself in the shoes of the bank or of the banker. So ask yourself this question: what is the bank doing with the foreign currency? The two key questions are: is the bank selling the foreign currency? So if the bank is selling the foreign currency, you use what is called the BSR, which simply means in full bank selling rate. Then, is the bank buying foreign currency? If the bank is buying foreign currency, apply the bank selling rate. So this is very, very important to master. What is the bank doing with the foreign currency? Is the bank selling foreign currency? Then use the what? bank selling rate. Is the bank buying foreign currency? Then use the bank buying rate. Another important or another key term which you need to master in this particular topic is the currency rate sheet. A currency rate sheet is a list of the rates of exchange at which foreign currencies are bought and sold. So this determines how much a bank is willing to pay for foreign currency, or how much the bank is willing to pay for or charge you for giving you foreign currency. So this rate will determine how much foreign currency you receive when you exchange money. That is what is called a currency rate sheet. Then convert a major currency to South African rand. Multiply by the exchange rate. When you're converting from foreign currency to South African rand, you multiply by the rate of exchange. You multiply, for example, 150 US dollar times 14.83 would give you 2,224 then and 50 cents. Then always make sure that your answers are correct to 2 decimal places. If there are other numbers which come after the comma, you simply round off correct to 2 decimal places. That is what is required to do. Then convert the South African currency, the rand, to a major currency. You need to divide by the rate of exchange, e.g. 15,000 divided by 16.65 will give you 900 euros. You must also know the different currency symbols. For example, the euro, you must also know how to write it. The pound, you must also know how to write the sign of the pound. Moving on to the questions themselves. We have section A, question 3, activity 3.1. Study the information below and the forex table below and answer the questions that follow. A South African university choir has been invited to perform at an international music festival in London in the United Kingdom. The members of the choir received, we have to highlight the money which they received as spending money. This is their spending money which they are going to use in the UK. Then we have them different exchange rates. We have the country, the United Kingdom, which uses the Great British Pound, GBP, summarized as GBP. Then we have their bank buying rate, which is 1609, bank selling rate 1718. Then we have the USA. The currency code is the USD, the US dollar. Then we have the bank buying rate. The bank buys that currency at 1431. Then when they sell it back to you, they will charge you 1445. Calculate the amount in pounds that each student received when they exchanged 610 at the exchange bureau at OR International Airport. Like I said earlier on, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the bank. So in this case, we have students who are exchanging 610. So what is the bank doing in this scenario? The bank is actually selling foreign currency to the students. The bank is actually selling foreign currency to the student. So what do we need to do? They are exchanging to the pounds. So the bank selling rate in this case is 1718. We are using 1718 because the bank is selling foreign currency to the students. So the first thing, we write the 610. Then the bank is selling to the students. So we are dividing in this case. Why are we dividing? We go back to the scenario which is above there. When you're converting the South African rand to a major currency, you divide by the rate of exchange. So that's why we are dividing in this case. So we have 610, which we are dividing by the bank selling rate, simply because the bank is the one which is selling currency to you. That's why we are using BSR. So when you do this calculation, 18, 610 divided by 1718, it should give us 35. When you use your calculator, it will give you 35,51. So When we say it out, this simply means that 35 pounds and 51. That is the amount which these members of the choir are going to receive in pounds. So that is our answer for 3.1.1. Now moving on to the next one, 3.2. When they returned to South Africa, one of the choir members exchanged 26 pounds 35 pence at a foreign currency bureau. So we need to determine what's happening, which transaction is taking place in this scenario. So I'm going to do 3.2 on top. So we have 226 pounds, 26 pounds, writing it there. Then in this case, what is the bank doing? The bank is taking foreign currency. So in other words, the bank is now buying. So we use BBR. And in this case, we are supposed to multiply the pounds by 1609 by our BBR. Then which gives us, if you multiply this using a calculator, it will actually give you a total of 423 rands 97 cents. So it will give you 423 rands and also 97 cents. So in this case, we need to justify why we took this method. Remember, the bank is buying forex. Then whenever you're converting from a major currency to the South African rand, the key thing is you multiply. That is what we did here. We've multiplied by the bank buying rate, because the bank is the one which is buying. Moving on to the next one, moving on to the next question, which reads, when they returned to South Africa, one of the choir members exchanged 26 pounds 35 at a foreign exchange bureau. So they exchanged 26 pounds 35 multiplied by at a foreign exchange bureau at OR Tambo International Airport. Calculate the amount which they received in rand. So 26 pounds 35. Then we are going to multiply it simply because this time is the bank which is buying using which rate? They are using 16.09. So when you multiply this using that 16.09, it actually gives you, I'm going to write the total, sum them on them. I'm going to write the total, sum them. So we are saying that we have 26 pounds multiplied. We have 26 pounds 35 multiplied by 16 multiplied by 1609, which is going to give you 423.181. Remember, our answer is supposed to be correct to 2 decimal places. So the 1 is insignificant. We erase the 1. So then we also express this in South African rand. So for 3.2, this is the correct calculation. For 3.2, that would be the correct calculation. Now moving on to the next one. The next calculation. All right, the next calculation. The next question reads, list 6 factors that have an impact on the rates fluctuations in South Africa. So we need 6 factors which determine the rate for fluctuations. So I'm going to write them using a different color here. Things which are or issues which affect the value of the South African rand. All right. So we have a country's economic performance. If a country, so we have economic performance. If a country is performing well, the exchange rate of the currency, it actually gains, or the South African rands appreciates when the economy is what is performing well. Then we also have political development. Political developments may also determine the value of a currency. Political developments, for example, when there's infighting amongst political leaders, that can actually make a current country's currency lose its value. Then, in addition to that, we also have social upheavals. When there's when people are fighting against each other in society, that can actually affect the value of a currency. So social upheavals. Then at times, natural disasters can also determine that. Natural disasters such as floods can also determine the value of a currency. So if a country is experiencing natural disasters, that can actually cause the currency of the country to depreciate. Then in addition to that, we also have economic policies. We can call them fiscal policies from the government or from the Reserve Bank, fiscal policies. The policies which are implemented by the people who are in charge of finance in a country can also result in that. Then we also have economic data. Economic data can also have an impact. Economic data can also have an impact on the value of a currency. So that is, those are the 6 factors which determine the value of a currency. Moving on to the next question, which reads, study the picture below and the exchange rate table below and answer the questions that follow. So we have gratuities, tipping. An international visitor left a tip for a waitress on the table in a restaurant in South Africa. So I think I need to highlight key issues there, which you need to observe. So the first thing, we need to highlight the name of the currency. I think you can see on the bottom corner that currency is actually euros. Then also the signs also, they also show that these are euros. So moving on to the question itself, we also have the United Kingdom with the currency code of the Great British Pound. Then we have the bank buying rate, which is 16. Then the bank selling rate, which is 16.06. Then the question reads, identify the currency that was left on the table for the waitress. So obviously, this is the currency used in the European Union, which we call or which we refer to as the euro. This is actually the euro. So that is the first question. The currency is the euro. Why are we saying? If you go back to the currency, it's written 20 euro. Then we also have the symbol of the euro on each of those coins, which are in which were left on the table. Add the total value of the foreign currency notes. So we need to add the total value of the foreign currency notes which were left on the table. So how do we add it? Already we have been given 20, which is the first note which is below. We have 20, which is the first note which is below there. So I'm going to write 20 so that we can calculate the total which we have there. We have 20, which appears there. We have 20. Our 20, which appears there. We have 20, which is recording. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, going on to the next part of the question. So we are trying to determine the amount of tips which were left there. So the first thing, there is the note which is below, right at the bottom, which is 20. That is 20 euros plus. We also have a 5 euro note which is there, plus 5 euros, plus we also have 3 euro coins plus 2. Then if we add 20 plus 5, that's your 25, plus 3, 28, 29, 30. So the tip which was left there, it was actually 30 euros. That was actually 30 euros in total, which was left there. So the correct answer would be, we write the symbol of euros, then you write 30. Or even if you write it in words, if you are not so familiar with them, with the symbol, you can also write that is 30 euros. So the total which was left in terms of tips, that was 30 euros. So I'm going to write it next to the question itself. That is 30. That is 30 euros. Then the next question reads, calculate how much the waitress would expect in rand when the owner of the restaurant exchanges the currency on behalf of the waitress. So we are going to use the same formula. We put ourselves in the hands of the bank. So when the restaurant owner exchanges the currency, we are actually moving from what? From foreign currency to, we are moving from foreign currency into the rand. So we multiply by the bank buying rate. We multiply by the bank buying rate because in this case, the bank is buying foreign currency, which is 1360. So 30 multiplied by 1360. So when you multiply that by 1360, you would get a total of, that is equal to 408. So it means that the waiter actually took 408 home. Then moving on to the next question, it reads, a British tourist left 27 British pounds on the table. So in this case, we have 27 British, British pounds on the table. Then we are multiplying this 27 British pounds by 1600. The British pounds are being multiplied by 1600. So we have 27 multiplied by 16, which gives us 432. So here it's 432. Here it's 432. Calculate the amount the waitress received in rands. We have 432. So in the first scenario, we have 408. Then in the second scenario, we have 432. So compare the two scenarios above in terms of the value of the tips the waitress has received. So I think you can see that the British pound, the waitress who received the British pound actually got more value. In other words, this is a question whereby you'll be comparing the value of two currencies. So you can actually see that the British pound, the GBP, the British pound, has more value than the euro. Yes, more value, or is stronger than the euro. So that is the difference between these two currencies. The British pound, the Great British pound, is more values. Then the next question, it says, explain how gratuities or tips received by the waitress can add value, add to the multiplier effect in the neighbor community. All right. The tips are valuable because the waiter would spend money on goods and services in the community which boosts the local economy. The local economy. Okay, just to explain this one further, when a waiter receives tips, that money is going to be used for her own benefits. She would buy certain goods. She would also pay for certain services. And that money is actually received by the service providers, and the shops in the local community. So by so doing, it actually boosts the local economy. The local economy actually grows from that. So money which is generated from tourism, it actually flows into other sectors of the what? Of the economy. Now, going to the next question, use the exchange rate table to answer the questions that follow. We have the pound sterling, which appears there. Then we also have the exchange rate, which appears there. It's 1802 and 1810. Then upon their arrival in South Africa, Gareth and his mother exchanged 400 pounds for South African rand. Calculate how much they received in rand. So in this case, we must determine what is happening. We are saying that we have 400, which is in pounds. Then we are multiplying, and the bank is the one which is buying by 1802. We are multiplying. Actually, it's 4,000 multiplied by 1802. All right, multiplied by 1802, it gives us 72,008. So this amount will be in rands. Then moving on to the next question, Gareth and his mother, he had 2,000 rands left to spend. So the amount which they had at the end of their trip was exchanged. They had 2,000. Calculate the amount they received in Great British Pound. So we have this 2,000. 2,000, we are writing it here. Then we are dividing this 2,000 by the bank selling rate, because the bank is now selling foreign currency to this tourist. So divided by 1810. So we have 2,000 rands divided by 1810. 2,000 divided by 1810. It would give us a final answer of 110 per 110.50. That is will be our final answer. Then moving on to the next question. Name the travel document that Gareth's mother had to present before she could exchange foreign currency. So foreign currency is usually exchanged for people who are passport. So the name of the document is passport. Or actually, to be specific, we need to call it a valid passport. Not only a passport, but a valid passport. That is the document which they need. Moving on to the next question. Study the information and the current exchange rate below and answer the questions that follow. Ms. Bukwayo is going on her first European tour. She includes a visit to a company office in Brussels. She's going to exchange to a foreign exchange bureau requesting information for Forex. So here is the foreign currency unit and exchange sheet. Currency code is the euro. Bank selling rates 1635. Bank buying rates 1572. Ms. Bukwayo will carry 500 euros in cash and load 1,250 on a credit card for the European tour. Calculate how much she will pay in rand to receive them 500. So in this case, we write our 500 euros here. Euros, which in this case, she will carry 5 and load onto a European card. Calculate how much she will pay in rand to receive 500 euros. So in order for her to receive 500 euros, we must divide, determine by the exchange rate which is given there. We must, well, in this case, we are going to say 500 times the bank selling rate, because the bank is the one which is selling the currency to this particular tourist. So it's 500 times 16, 65, which gives us, so she's supposed to pay 8,175. Because 8,175, that is the amount which the tourist is, or Miss Bukwayo is supposed to give the bank so that she receives that amount. Moving on to the next question, we have how much will she need to pay for 1,250. So we write our 1,250 divided by the bank selling rate, which is 1665. So when we calculate that, it's 1,250 divided by 1665. It gives us, multiplied by, bit of correction there. We are multiplying this time, just like in the previous sum, multiplied by 1665. So we are saying 1,250 multiplied by 16,65. It gives us a total sum of 20,000. 20,812. Then we also have 50 cents outside. Then the next question reads, on Ms. Bukwayo's return to South Africa, she has a 5,000 gift voucher from her office friends in Brussels. Calculate how much she will receive in terms of rand. So on her return, she has 5,000 gift voucher from her office friends in Brussels. So in this case, we are using this 5,000. Then we are converting it. We're multiplying again, but this time we are using bank buying rate. The bank is the one buying, not Miss Bukwayo. So she is selling her foreign currency to the bank, which is 1572. So in this case, we say 5,000 times 15,72. So total, all in all, we get a total of 78,000. So it simply means that they have 78,600 rands. That will be the total amount which they would exchange the gift voucher for. Then moving on to activity 3.5, which reads, study the exchange rate below and answer the questions that follow. So we have the US dollar, which is pegged at 14.72, the bank buying rate 14.12. Then we also have the pound sterling and its bank selling rate and bank buying rate. A South African tourist returns from the United Kingdom with 2,500. Calculate how much the South African will receive in rand. So we have a South African tourist, that is the first thing, who returns from the UK with 2,500. So the first thing which we need to do is we need to determine what's happening here. 2,500, so we are exchanging to South African rands. So 2,500 multiplied by, the bank is the one which is buying. So we are using 1829 multiplied by 1829. So when we say 2,500 times 18,29, we end up having 45,725. 2,725 South African rands. Then moving on to the next question. Your friend who is studying in the United States of America. You have a friend who is studying in the United States of America. It is your friend's birthday and you'd want like to transfer 1,800 into his gift into his account as a gift. Calculate how much your friend will receive. So in this case, we are moving from South African rand to US dollars. So in this case, what we are going to do, we are moving from US dollars from South African rand to US dollars. We would divide by the bank selling rate. So the bank selling rate is pegged at 14.72. So we have 1,800 divided by 14.72. So it will give us a total of $122. So it is equal to $122. Then we have 28 cents. This is how you do your foreign currency calculations. So just a recap of foreign currency calculations. The things which you must make sure that you master. You need to master the formula. We start with the formula. The formula needs to be mastered. You need to put yourself in the hands of the foreign currency dealer. It can be a bank. So when doing foreign currency, always look at the bank's position. What is the bank doing with the foreign currency? Is the bank buying foreign currency, which is BSR, or is the bank buying? Is the bank selling foreign currency, which is BSR, or is the bank buying foreign currency, which is BBR? So those that rule would determine what you're going to do. So when you're converting a major currency, which is Forex, a major currency, you can also say when you're converting Forex to the South African rand, always multiply the rate of exchange. For example, US dollars into South African rands multiplied by 14.83. Then when you are converting the South African rand to major currency, divide. Use the division rule by the exchange rate, e.g. 15,000 divided by 16.65 is equals to 900 euros, 90 cents. So these are the basics which needs to be mastered when you are doing a foreign currency calculation. You need to determine what exactly are you doing in each and every scenario. Then always make sure that you write the value of the currency, the correct symbol of the currency. Then it must also be correct to 2 decimal places. Whenever there are additional numbers after the comma, you need to round them off effectively. So this brings us to the end of the discussion of the foreign.